Today we're talking about communication with your teens. If you're anything like us, you tend to get in what we call preacher mode, where you're doing 95% of the talking and they're just sitting there rolling their eyes or with their mouth shut.
So parents, what we really need to do is put down the fire hose where we just feel like we just have to talk at our kids and tell them everything that we want them to hear, and start asking questions and start listening to what our kids have to say.
Now, don't misunderstand what we're saying. We're not suggesting that you coddle your teens or that you never transfer your values. It's just the opposite. We want you to transfer your values. Parents want to make sure that you're heard, but believe it or not, sometimes you're heard when you speak less.
So parents, think about when you were a teenager, you had your own thoughts and opinions, and you wanted to be able to put those out there and for your parents to care about your opinion. So I think we need to remember that as parents, to not treat our teenagers like they have no value or nothing to say here. We're going to do all the talking, they're going to do all the listening. What we really need to do is start to get to know our teenager and encourage them to express themselves.
I know for me, when I do all the talking, in essence, I'm bailing out my kids. I'm allowing them to be passive and I'm doing all the work.
This is where the magic of questions can come into play. Whether it's a world situation out there in the news or something that's happened in your family or with your teenagers' friends, for you to talk about that situation, but ask questions of, well, what do you think about that? Or how does that situation, how would that make you feel?
For example, we were watching an interview with Ryan Lochte some months ago, after he got in trouble for the Brazil Olympics and all the stuff that he did. And we noticed that he wasn't taking ownership, he wasn't taking responsibility for his choices. But instead of telling our kids that, we just asked him questions. Hey, what did you notice about the interview? And it was a lot more productive for our kids for them to articulate it in their own words. We still got to the same thing, but we got there by asking them questions.
Here's another example. Our kids had one of those bad sibling moments where doors were slamming, voices were being raised and yelling, and I think even one person ended up crying. So instead of my husband and I just kind of entering into that and just freaking out and yelling at them and preaching at them about how terrible that is, they can't treat each other that way, we took a different tactic, which was, you need to go to your room and you need to write down 3 things. First, what you think you did wrong, what your responsibility was and whatever happened in that situation, what you think your sibling did wrong, and what you think an appropriate punishment would be. And then they had to come and present that to us, the parents, and then we had a conversation about it. And again, what it was helping them to discover their own actions and the responsibility they needed to take, how they reacted to what the other person did, but then also thinking about what's the right punishment for that kind of a situation. And they owned that whole thing so much better. It was way more of a teaching moment for them to do the work than for us to do it.
Now, I don't know how realistic this sounds to you, but it really does work. And what we're talking about is a culture of communication. But parents, for you, I think one of the ways that you can spark that culture is by learning to ask more questions.
So parents, let's put down the fire hose. We don't have to tell our kids everything, and let's start asking questions that draw our teenagers out, that tell us more about who they are and how they think and how they feel, and see how that isn't going to grow your relationship and help you move forward as a family.